I have never been more excited about a story that starts off with we ran out of columns. This is just making me excited. Wow, flashbang, flashbang. All right, we ran out of columns, the best, worst code base on the merchants 2 table. Yeah, we ran out of columns on merchants, so we made a merchants 2. Oh my gosh. What is the allowed maximum column column count squeal light? How about squeal light? Isn't it 999? Oh, there's a hard limit of 32,000. Okay. Columns per table, 1,600. Oh, yeah, Squeal Server. You're right. Microsoft SQL Server. I forgot about this one. Okay, they have the same thing. If you need more than this in your dynamic pivot, time to get a second thought to what you're doing. I love this. If you need more than 1,024 columns in your dynamic pivot, it's time to give a second thought of what you're doing. Really? You know, I would probably put that number way lower, okay? We're talking about way lower than that. Is that 2 to the 10 that things got out of control? You're like, really? 2 to the 10? That's the number? That's crazy. When I started programming as a kid, I didn't know people were paid to program. Even as I graduated high school, I assumed that the world of professional development looked quite different from the code I wrote in my spare time. It's true, it looks worse. That's the big lie I think our industry has had for so long, is that you take these companies, and whether it used to be the fangs of old, but it's now probably the startups of today, all these startups using all the greatest technologies, all the hooking up to where everybody's just a cyber Mario that just simply puts pipes together and that's it. Even their code bases with almost no business logic are absolute dog water. When I lucked my way into my first software job, I quickly learned just how wrong and how right I had been. My first job was a trial by fire. To this day, that code base remains the worst and the best code base I have ever had the pleasure of working in. While the code base will forever remain locked by proprietary walls of that particular company, I hope I can share some of its most fun and scary stories. I'm excited here. Okay, we're excited here. Come on. The database lives forever. In a large legacy system, the database is more than a place to store data. It is a culture maker. Dude, this is so true. Oh my gosh. I never even thought about that, but in my head, I was thinking about my first job, my first real job, my first fully real job, in which everything was stored procedures. And it's like the entire company like morphed itself around this idea of stored procedures. It became the culture of the company. The database sets the constraints for how the system as a whole operates. It is the point where all code meets. The database is the watering hole. In our case, the watering hole had quite a bit of pollution. It always does, man. Did you know that Squeal Server has a limit on the number of columns you can have in a table? Me neither. At the time, it was 2 to the 10. Today, it appears to be 2 to the 12. Needless to say, most people don't know this. We did. The reason? Merchants, our table store customer information, ran out of columns a long time ago. You know, I've seen people get around some of this by just storing JSON. You know how many times you've seen JSON just stored in a random column? How is that legal? Jason called it. Dude, it's... Oh my gosh. Something about that just makes me emotionally painful. Then you know when it gets real bad? When you see people using those fuzzy matches or regex matches on a where statement to just look at the string that is JSON. Not we're not talking about Postgres with the JSON good stuff. We're talking about not Postgres and just getting it. You know, JSON B. Yeah, it's called No Squeal. JSON B is legit though. Yeah, I haven't tried any of those. Yeah, columns like where's food, dude. Yes, this is real. This is real. Where column like food. Dude, I've seen this, and this is awful. It's 2024, and if you're not using Postgres, you're either a bank or wrong. Well, there is Squealite. Can we all agree Squealite is amazing? I've never said anything bad about Postgres, but Squealite is also very, very good. Hashtag ad. Squealite is very, very good. Squealite is slow. When people say that, I don't think they know what they're saying. There's an entire talk about how not slow Squealite actually is. Sharper Guy, do you write JavaScript on the server? A lot of people be complaining about speed, yet I don't see them using C or Zig to write the world's most optimized code. That's what I'm just saying. You know, you can't be complaining about the difference between like 2 microseconds when you're out there using a garbage collector, okay, buddy? Okay, buddy? I like serverless. It's like, oh, okay. Oh, I'm really concerned about performance then. Anyways, Needless to say, most people don't need to know this. We did. The reasons, merchant 2, blah, blah, blah. Merchants 2 was the solution. A table, if I remember correctly, with 500 plus columns itself. Damn, they had 1,500 columns. Merchants, and my best friend Merchants 2, were the lifeblood of the system. Everything made its way back to merchants somehow or other. But it wasn't as if merchants was the solo or duo table. There was plenty of properly normalized table with all the foreign keys to merchants. But one will always hold a special place in my heart. Sequence key. I can't wait for this. Sequence key. That. For ease of understanding, I have recreated the whole sequence key table above. Yes, you read that correctly. This is the whole table. A table with a single key and a single value. If simplicity is a virtue, then one might declare sequence key to be the perfect table. What could be simpler? A constant? One in which you don't have to look up? You may be asking yourself, what possible use case could you have for a table with one column in a row, generating IDs? Now, the story I heard at the time was the once upon a time Squeal server didn't support auto-incrementing IDs. It was their primary key generator. Like, honestly, my brain couldn't even conceive of this. Many DBs did. Like, this is just too painful. Sequence key. I just didn't want to believe it. There's no way I was going to let myself believe that this was real. Even as I read it, I'm like, nope, not going to do it. It's not going to be primary key. Not going to be, nope, shit. This was the accepted correct answer. My search to figure out if this was true was inconclusive, but in practice, it served as much more than that. Sequence key was the glue. In every stored procedure that created new entities, you first grabbed a key from sequence key, incremented it. Then insert that as your ID for n different tables. You now had an implicit join between all those entry tables. If you saw an ID in the system, there was a good chance related tables would have a row with the exact same ID. Honestly, kind of clever. But isn't that just like database? The calendar. A database may live forever, but our login system was limited by the calendar. Okay. I don't mean an actual calendar. I mean a database table called calendar. What did it contain? A manually filled out calendar. When asking a resident shaman who went by the name of Munch, he informed me that when the calendar runs out, we can't log into the system. I gotta know why that is. I just gotta know how that happened. Like how did that happen? This happened a few years ago, so they had an intern fill out 5 more years to make sure that it didn't happen anytime soon. What system used this calendar? No one knew. What? Also, couldn't the intern just write a for loop of inserts? Like, do you even have to now I'm concerned? Oh, now you're concerned. So let me get this straight. You weren't concerned when the thing's called we ran out of columns. You were concerned when they had an intern that filled in 5 more years for logging in. MacBook under the stairs again. This is MacBook under the stairs, except for worse. What's a for loop? You can 4 these nuts. Employees. Every morning at 7:15, the employees table was dropped. You think layoffs are bad now? You should have saw layoffs back then, okay? This is the real one. All the data completely gone. Then a CSV from an ADP was uploaded into the table. During this time, you couldn't log into the system. Sometimes this process failed. This wasn't the end of the process. The data needed to be replicated to headquarters, so an email was sent to a man who every day would push a button to copy the data. One would just think one would think this process only happened when there was a change in employment. You know what? You know what I think would be really great? I think every company, you know what? Hey, since we're talking about video games, stop killing video games and all this. You know what I think? I think we need to have every single piece of software that's 10 years older or more to be open sourced and for the LLMs to train on. Okay? I want real production code for all these LLMs to be trained on. I think that's the only reasonable way to get things done, because I don't see how, if Copilot does not suggest this to me, I'm going to be really, really upset. I think Copilot should suggest the email once a day, press the button to deploy the employees table every day. Okay? And if this guy goes on vacation, all hell's breaking loose, okay? That's what I want. The replacement database. You might be thinking to yourself, couldn't someone clean up this database? Make it nicer to work with? Dude, no. I did not think that to myself, because there's 1,024 columns in merchants and over 500 in merchants too. That's an impossible. No one's cleaning up that code base. Ever. For any reason. Ever. Forever. Ever. Okay? Well, the company was way ahead of you. There was a copy of the database. Data in this copy was about 10 minutes out of date. Sync only went one way, but this database was normalized. How normalized? To go from merchants to a phone number was 7 joins. Somebody went real enterprise. You know what the funny part is I know everyone here's like, damn, how could they do that? Oh, this is awful. But I've done that. You know, there's this thing that happens where you first work in an environment in which you have exceeding amount of columns. And so the answer is to make everything atomic. Normalization syndrome. Yeah, this happens. This isn't somehow wild, right? Why is this so relatable to me? Because this is everybody's mistake with databases. And you know what? If I were to start doing a bunch of database work again, guess how many of these mistakes I would make? I probably wouldn't get out to the maximum number of columns, but I could easily see myself going, shit, I'm at like 25 columns at this point. Maybe I need to rethink my stuff. And then it'd go out to like 35. I'm like, damn. When you first move into a house, it's shiny and new, and then you do things, and then you start doing things to it. The sales number. Every salesperson had a quota they needed to meet every month called win. Oh, is this a Cloudflare? Like, is this are we about to meet the safety and trust team, commonly referred to as the sales team? The tables that kept this data, not the financial keepings, but the sales-specific way of accounting for this, were incredibly complicated. Every day, a job would figure out which rows had been added and updated and sync them with the system at headquarters. This wasn't really a problem until one salesperson figured out they could ask for those records to be manually changed. This salesperson had already got their win and landed another big sale that month, so they wanted it to be moved to next month. Oh my gosh, what a genius. The man is stacking sales. Oh, this is so good. Imagine accounting for this. Like just for a second, this guy just effed up accounting in a whole special, beautiful way. Like so beautiful. You're receiving money, but no sale has happened for a while. Oh, this is so good. This is the perfect storm of gaming the system. An intern was tasked with doing so. Word got out, and over the next 3 years, requests would grow exponentially. At one point, we had 3 interns whose full-time job was writing these squeal statements. Writing an application to do this was deemed too difficult. Before I left, though, I made sure to help those interns build their own. No idea if it ever took off, though. IRS shambles. Deeply illegal accounting, actually. I know, this is deeply illegal. This is so good. The code base. What is a code base or a database without a code base? And what a magnificent code base it was. When I joined, everything was in Team Foundation Server. Oh, I've heard nothing but good things about Team Foundation Server. You know, I've never had the privilege of working in it myself, but I've heard amazing stories that it's absolutely one of the best pieces of software out there ever. If you aren't familiar, this was Microsoft-made centralized source control system. The main code base I worked in was half VB, half C#. Now, that seems pretty normal. I've worked in very similar ones. It ran on IIS. Oh, man. IIS. Now, that's actually the only server that I was not smart enough to understand. Sure, I could raw dog TCP, created my own video format, was able to send... I had a whole distributed graph network to be able to send my own custom protocol through nodes for the government, hardware hopping and all that. Couldn't understand IIS. It literally was too confusing. Couldn't do it. Literally could not do it. We still use IIS. Bless your soul. And used session state for everything. Oh, this actually seems like a good idea. I would use session state for everything. Nginx or Riot. Oh, what did this mean in practice? If you navigated to a page via Path A or Path B, you'd see very different things on that page. But to describe this codebase as merely half VB and half C# would do a disservice. Every JavaScript framework that existed at the time was checked into the repository, typically with some custom changes the author believed needed to be made, most notably Knockout, Backbone, and Marionette. But of course, there was a smattering of jQuery and jQuery plugins. Nothing like Knockout, Backbone, Marionette, jQuery, and some jQuery plugins. How much do you want to bet Date Picker's in there? Date Picker by the CEO of Front End Masters, Mark. Good guy Mark making Date Picker for everybody's life. Date Picker was the single greatest library of all time, okay? Don't even try to tell me that jQuery's Date Picker wasn't revolutionary. Don't even try. Don't even try. But this code base didn't stand alone. Next to it were a dozen or so SOAP services and a handful of native Windows applications. Most notable was the shipping manager. Fable has an entire application was built in a weekend by a solo developer. Let's call him Gilfoyle. Gilfoyle was by all accounts an incredibly fast programmer. I never met him, but I felt like I knew him. Not just through his code in the repos, but also through all the code remaining on his hard drives. Wait, what? Gilfoyle's hard drives? Wait, what? Munch. Yes, this was the name he really went by. Kept Gilfoyle's hard drives in RAID configuration on his desk years after Gilfoyle had left the company. Why? Because Gilfoyle was known for not checking in code. Not only that, but for building a random one-off Windows application for a single user. It wasn't uncommon to have a user come to us with a bug report for an application that only existed on Gilfoyle's hard drive. I cannot say that I've ever experienced anything like this. This is a peak of coding and athleticism I have never seen. Okay? It's too good. It's actually too good for me. He's literally the GOAT. Okay? Bus factor 1. Deny, refuse. Literally, customers coming and be like, hey, I need you to fix this bug on this application. What application? We've never heard of that. Well, actually, it turns out one of you guys wrote an application just for me. Most of my job was tracking down bugs that teams didn't want to dedicate work to. One particularly nasty bug would pop up once every few months. After we had shipped things, the shipping queue would have stuck orders in them that claimed to both be already shipped and not shipped. I went through a series of workarounds, a squeal script, window applications, etc., to try and get us out of the broken state. I was advised not to try and track down the root cause, but I couldn't help myself. Oh yeah. Along the way, I learned how Gilfoyle thought. The shipping app pulled down the entire code base or the entire database and then filtered by date, keeping all past orders keeping all orders past the go-live date of the application. The app relied on a SOAP service, not to do any servicey things. No, the service was pure function. It was the client that did all the side effects. In that client, I discovered a massive class hierarchy, 120 classes, each with various methods, inheritance going 10 levels deep. Those are some rookie numbers, okay? 10 levels. That's all you got? That's all you got, Gilfoyle? The only problem? All the methods were empty. I do not exaggerate here. Not mostly empty. Empty. Okay, I like this. There's a thing here. That one stumped me for a while. Eventually, I learned this was in service of building a structure he could then use reflection on. That's so beautiful. That reflection would let him create a pipe delimited string whose structure was completely database driven, but entirely static, and he would send over a socket. Turns out this was all eventually sent to Kewil, the service that talked to shipping carriers. Why did this bug happen? Kewil used 9-digit long numbers every month. Someone had disabled the cron job that deleted old orders. You know, there's something that's very beautiful about that. I'm just going to be real here for a second. This idea of using reflection to build up a string and every method was empty, it's so chaotic, it's beautiful. It's lovely. You know, I mean, that's the thing is that when you see truly novel ways to solve something, there's something about it that just gets me excited. Yeah, it's sorcery level. This is beautiful in the same sense as a black hole. Exactly. It's black hole beautiful. It's not that you'd ever want to be remotely close to a black hole and get spaghettified into the universe. It's that its beauty is also why it's so terrifying, right? Its beauty is in its terribleness. It is great in the classic sense of the word great. Just like it's just like a volcano. Like a volcano is beautiful. It's awesome. There you go. It's awesome. The beautiful mess. There are so many more things to tell from this code base, like a team of super senior developers who were rewriting the whole thing without shipping any code for 5 years, or the Red Hat consultants building the one database to rule them all. There were so many crazy corners of this code base, so many reasons why there were whole teams dedicated to starting from scratch on just one bit of its functionality. But I think the most important story to tell is about Justin's improvement of the merchant search page. The merchant search page was the entry point into the entire application. Every customer service rep would get on the phone with the merchant and type either their ID or name to find their information. That would land you on a massive page with all their information. The page was information dense in the best way, full of any information you could need and any links you could want to visit, but it was dog slow. Justin was the sole senior developer in my group. He was bright, snarky, and couldn't care less about the business. He told it like it was, didn't pull any punches, and could always solve problems by himself faster than teams around him. One day, Justin Got tired of hearing about how slow the merchant search page was and went to fix it. Every box on the screen became its own endpoint. On load, everything above the fold would start fetching. And as one load in, more requests would come in. It took the page time from minutes to sub-second. Well done, Justin. Also kind of wild. Really like an N+1 query problem that went on. Just absolutely no respect for the servers. Let's go. Let's go. 2 ways to decouple. Why was Justin able to do this? Because the code base had no master plan. There was no overarching design the system had to fit into. No expected format for APIs. No documented design system. No architectural review board making sure things were coherent. The app was a complete and utter mess. No one could fix it. No one could ever fix it, so no one tried to. What did we do instead? We carved our own little world of sanity. This monolithic app, due to its sheer necessity, had grown to be a microcosm of nice, small apps around its edges. Each person, when tasked with improving some part of the app, would inevitably give up untangling that web and find some nice little corner to build new things, and then slowly update links to point to their nice new stuff, orphaning the old one. This may sound like a mess to you, but it was remarkably enjoyable to work in. Gone were the concerns of code duplications. Gone were the concerns of consistency. Gone were the concerns of extensibility. Code was written to serve a use, to touch as little of the area around it as possible, and to be easily replicatable or replaceable. Our code was decoupled because coupling it was simply harder. It's actually kind of nice. It's kind of sweet. It's kind of like a little sweet ending here. This is such a lovely story. I love the fact that this guy could work in potentially one of the worst code bases ever created and just see the positive part of it all. I really love trying to look at things in the positive light, and this is just like the ultimate expression of being positive, even about something that could be so awful. Lovely. After. In my career since, I have never had the privilege of working in such a wonderfully ugly code base. Every ugly code base I've encountered since has never transcended into its need for consistency. Perhaps it was because the code base had been abandoned by serious developers long before. All that remained were ragtag interns and junior developers. Or perhaps it was because there was no layer between those developers and the users. No translations, no requirements gathering, no cards. Just you standing at the desk of the customer service rep, asking them how you could make their life better. I miss that direct connection, that fast feedback, that lack of making grand plans, the simple problem and code connection. Perhaps it's simply a naive nostalgia. But just as I find myself laying on the couch, longing to go back to some of the worst years of my childhood, when faced with yet another enterprise design pattern, my mind flashes back to that beautiful, horrible code base. I've had something that's kind of like this in the sense that it was just like every team had their own little thing, and it was just like a hodgepodge together application, and it was beautiful. It was fun to work in. I could get my stuff done, and it was virtually impossible to look at anybody else's stuff. There is something that's very beautiful about the ability to just disregard everything and just build your own thing. There is something beautiful about that. I do love this. This was fantastic. Thank you, Jimmy Miller. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The name. I'm a little touched. I'm a little verklempt right now. A gen.